The Trenton Golden Hawks are buckling.
17 goals in one game. You had to see this one to believe it. Milton and Mississauga going toe-to-toe in a marathon encounter. Highlights coming up. This is the OJ Today. Welcome, everybody. We've got tons of coverage from last weekend to get to on today's show. Also, Newmarket Hurricanes broadcaster Jamie Neugebauer will join me via Skype to discuss their push for the 8th and final playoff spot in the Northeast. That's coming up later, but we've got so many games to cover this week. Let's get right to the bar down game highlights. And you may be wondering why we're leading off with a game between two last place teams. Well, the last time Milton actually won a game, Hillary Clinton was still looking like a good bet to be the next president. That would be all the way back on September 30th. My, how things have changed since. It's been a painful, tumultuous few months for the Ice Hawks since. And Sunday they faced off against Mississauga in what turned out to be one of the wildest games of the year so far. OJ Highlights now brought to you by Bar Down, official clothing supplier to the OJHL. Okay, we can't show you all 17 goals because there just isn't enough time, but we'll tell the story as best we can. Milton strikes first. Derek McVeigh bangs it past Luca Durante. 1-zip Ice Hawks. Missy knots it up on the power play. Noah Kelsner low smacks it home to make it a 1-1 hockey game. And then just before the end of the period, Cole Resnick gives them the lead as he banks home the ricochet. And it's 2-1 for the Chargers. Second frame, floodgates were open. It's now 6-1 Mississauga when Milton starts to crank it up. Zach McKinnell, backhander. That makes it 6-2. 2 minutes later, it's brother Brett converting the 2-on-1 to cut the lead in half. 6-3. Mississauga would make it 7-3, but then it's Brett McKinnell coming through again with the wicked wrister right there. And it's 7-4 Chargers. Late in the frame, Justin Paul, the immovable object out front, cuts the lead at 7-5, and Milton had all the momentum in the third. Alex Quinn out front here, and what the heck was going on? Suddenly 7-6 Mississauga, and then Nick Leschuk ends up going roof daddy, and the comeback was complete. This was incredible. Now the teams would trade goals to make it 8-8, leading to overtime. Take it away, Mr. Prash Naikwadi.
Maya wins that faceoff. Maya off the draw right there and close. He scores! Thomas Maya gets the overtime winner, and Milton wins this game by a score of 9-8.
Unbelievable. Milton comes back from 6-1 and 7-3 deficits to grab the 2 points. An epic comeback for a team that has had so many struggles this year. That game is a serious confidence boost. Well, don't look now, but the Whitby Fury are making a serious run at first place Trenton in the East. For a while, it looked like the Golden Hawks were going to run away with the number 1 seed in the conference, but an 8-game winning streak has vaulted the Fury right back into the thick of things. The last team to hand Whitby a loss was Kingston, all the way back on December 30th, and the two squads faced off again last Friday. Whitby certainly had revenge on its mind going back to its last loss against Kingston, and they waste no time. 22 seconds in, Ryan Taylor banks home the rebound. It's 1-zip Fury. Kingston would get it back, though, off the mad scramble here. Brandon Nadeau backhands it home, and it's 1-1 heading into the dressing room for the break. Second frame, Whitby gets the lone goal. Nick Corrick, Scott Curtin, the 2-on-1. Curtin with the finish, and it's 2-1 Fury. Third frame, though, the V's would knot it up. On the power play, nobody clears out Josh LeBlanc, who smacks it home to tie up the proceedings at 2 apiece. Overtime solved nothing, so the hard-fought battle between Eastern teams ends up a stalemate. That extends Whitby's unbeaten streak to 7. They would actually stretch it to 8 before falling to Coburg earlier in the week, and they slide to 6 points behind the Golden Hawks, which will be tough to make up with just a month left in the regular season. Junior Canadians taking on Aurora. This was a crazy one, too. Magnificent Mel Melconian, as Joe Montezano likes to call him. He was magnificent on this day. He makes it 1-0 Tigers. A minute later, though, Jack McBain with the tip-in to not think peace. But then it's Mr. Melkonian again, splitting the wickets on Andrew Cipollone to help the Tigers retake the lead. But back and forth they go just 24 seconds later. James Turner knocks home the rebound to tie things up at 2 apiece. And then on the power play, Mitch Lazar's point shot finds its way through to put the JRCs up by a single goal. We skip ahead to the third frame now. Aurora gets it back. Magnificent Mel gets the Hattie. His third of the game. And the teams would trade goals from that point on, which would lead to overtime.
You have a man in front. You're playing back then, Chip. Give it away. Holland's free. Holland. Back at it. God! Eric Holland went in it overtime. Oh my!
I think Joe was just a little bit excited there with the call. Love the enthusiasm, buddy. What a game. Aurora pulls it out, and Toronto gives up a crucial point in their battle for third place in the South. Okay, OJ trivia for this week, and your question is, who was the 2015-16 OJHL Executive of the Year? The first person with the correct answer in the form of an email to rmorocco@theojhl.ca wins an OJ prize pack. Welcome back. Well, compared to the other top teams in the Southwest, the Oakville Blades were relatively quiet at the trade deadline. And while Burlington and Georgetown were loading up, the Blades added D-man Sal Felice from the JRCs, but otherwise they stood pat. And it's a sign that Oakville is confident that the core they've got will get the job done come playoff time. So far, so good, as the Blades are number 1 in the South, and they continued to roll against the Patriots last weekend. Another game that was anything but boring. Just 128 in. El Capitan Jackson Bales with the easy little tap in that gives Oakville the 1-0 lead. And then Bryce Misley. You'll see this again in the plays of the week later. Nicholas Favaro still searching for his jockstrap a week later. 2-0 Blades. The Pats hit the score sheet a minute and a half later. Brendan McGlynn can't smother it. Paul Vaiolo pokes it home, and it's 2-1. But then Matthew Kellenberger, this guy might have the best point shot in the league along with Brennan Roy, absolutely tattoos it into the top corner. Blades back up by 2, it's 3-1. But late in the frame, Vaiolo finds Kirill Ulanov, who shelves it. Wait the first period, 5 goals. Second frame, Pats draw even. Jason DePerna spins and fires it past McGlynn, 3-3. The Blades would make it 4-3, but then Colton Kalisic beats McGlynn, and once again, it was even. Steven tied it 4. Third frame, 17 seconds in, Misley with the dagger as he whips it past Fassel. That would prove to be the game winner. 5-4 Blades, your final. So Oakville pads its lead over St. Mike's to 10 points, and they're looking like a sure bet to win the South and nab that second overall seed in the conference behind Georgetown. Well, Oakville's Halton nemesis to the west has been looking utterly unstoppable lately. Burlington has won 8 of its last 10, and while it won't catch Georgetown for first in the West, the Cougars sent a strong message at the trade deadline with several huge acquisitions. That message, they're all in for the playoffs, and now they're just fine-tuning as they get ready for a big playoff run. And last week, their full powers were on display against Mississauga. We'll say this much, for 2 periods, the Chargers kept it close, although the Cougars did strike first. Anthony Baxter absolutely crushes the one-timer past Tyler Karuna. Hope you didn't blink there. 1-0 Burlington. The Cougars getting solid goaltending from Noah Featherstone go as he robs Chris Karabassis on the 2-on-1 there, but Karabassis would have his revenge shortly after as he goes roof daddy. Perfect placement on that shot. And Mississauga was hanging and they were tossing the body around. Kyler Matthews says hello to Chris Cobham, Chargers style. Second frame, though, Burlington starts to take over. The point shot squeaks past Karuna. Kyle Moore pokes it home to make it 2-1 Cougars. Karuna had to be on his toes to make sure it didn't get any worse at that point. Cougars odd man rush. The keeper gets down to make the nice save. But then off the mad scramble here, Austin Bottrell gets credit for it out front, and it's 3-1 Cougars. And the third period include bloodbath. Hunter Atchison, a key trade deadline acquisition from Coburg, puts it home to make it 4-1 for Burlington, and it got worse. Burlington would add 5 more in the third to make it a 9-1 final. Ouch. Tough one for Mississauga, who may be in last in the South, but typically are competitive in most games. Not on this night. Okay, the Rangers visiting the Raiders last weekend. Georgetown continues their trend of starting slowly, lately anyway, as Ross Krieger squeezes it past Josh Astorino. 1-0 North York, but then the Raiders start to crank it up. On the PP, Luke Beamish takes the return feed, and he will float it past Jet Alexander. And it's all knotted up at 1 apiece. And then with just 3 seconds left in the period, the Rangers hated this one. They thought it should have been goaltender interference as Jordan Anderson takes no prisoners in the crease. The Raiders go up 2-1. We hope you can't read lips because Rangers head coach Jeff Schmoge was just a little displeased with the non-call on his goaltender. Second frame, North York strikes back. 13 seconds in, Joseph Mitzi with the seeing eye shot that eludes Astorino, and the Rangers are even Steven. It's 2-2. And then moments later, Nick Campoli says hello to the goalie's best friend as he rings it off the crossbar. Third period, Jack Jacome wins it in style for Georgetown.
A few good looks as well, and there's the top line out for Georgetown again, trying to make something happen. Here comes Jack Jacome. Jack Jacome in. He's in alone. He shoots. He scores. Jack Jacome. What a move. What a goal. The magician with the puck. And it's 3-2 Georgetown. Wow.
Yeah, they'd add an empty netter to make it a 4-2 final. Jack Jacome has been Mr. Everything for G-Town over the past 2 seasons, and it's no wonder he was voted the Bar Down Southwest Player of the Month for December. Okay, some news and notes for you. The latest CJHL rankings came out, and for the second week in a row, Georgetown continues to be tops in all of Canada. Number 1, followed by Trenton, who moves up a spot to number 6, and Whitby drops a couple of spots. They currently sit number 15 in the national rankings. Let's take a look at the OJ standings. We see Trenton, Coburg, and Whitby have all clinched playoff spots in the East, and Wellington and Kingston are 4th and in 5th now. To the north we go. Markham, a comfy lead over Stouffville in 2nd now. The ongoing battle between Newmarket and Lindsay there for that 8th and final playoff spot, the 3rd and 4th place teams in the division. And the South, Oakville, 10-point bulge over St. Mike's now. But look at North York, the JRCs, and the Patriots battling it out there. And in the West, Georgetown has clinched the playoff spot for certain, followed by Burlington, Buffalo, Orangeville, and Milton. And just a reminder, of course, the first annual OJHL Combines are taking place this April. Who will be next? Do you have what it takes? Taking place April 6th to 9th in Oshawa and April 20th to the 23rd in Oakville. Showcase your talents in front of all 22 OJHL teams. OJHL.ca for more information. Welcome back to the OJ today. I'm happy to be joined now via Skype by the busiest man in the OJHL, broadcaster that is, Jamie Neugebauer. Nugsy, welcome back to the show, buddy.
It's always great to be on. Thanks for having me.
All right. This is the interview brought to you by Edge Again, portable and manual skate sharpening units. You can always visit edgeagain.com for more information. And Nugsy, you wear so many different hats. Today, we're going to talk about one of the 4 teams that you do play-by-play for. That would be the Newmarket Hurricanes. Very interesting season so far for these guys, battling for the 8th and final playoff spot in the Northeast. And let's just start with that then. Talk about the Hurricanes and their season so far to this point, in your opinion.
Well, I mean, given the way they started, you have to give the players on that team a lot of credit. For whatever reason, it didn't work out with Tom Longland and his coaching staff to start the season. But Tommy Milne came in October, and the guys seem to have really taken with him. They've had some issues in terms of continuity in net. Jesse Hodgson didn't play for a long time because Bradley Van Schubert was there. Now Bradley Van Schubert's gone, and Hodgson has to sort of take a heavy load. So I think that has disrupted a little bit. But they have shown on their night that they can certainly play with some really, really good teams. And they beat Coburg, and they played Wellington pretty hard, and different teams like that. So they certainly have the ability to put a game in there.
And a recent win over Orangeville as well at the Showcase tournament going on in Trenton, an Orangeville team that's been much improved as of late. So Newmarket, as mentioned, they do have the power to pull off some pretty significant upsets. Let's talk about what the struggles have been in your opinion so far, because as mentioned, Thomas Milne came in not at the start of the season. They were already at least a month into the season by the time he came in, so they were playing catch up. What was ailing the Hurricanes in that first sort of month and a half?
Well, I just think they were quite leaky, giving up goals. They weren't very hard to play against, to be honest. They were very aggressive against teams that maybe they needed to sit back against a little bit, those speed teams, those power teams. And the truth is, they still aren't a team that's great at scoring off the cycle. They score on their power play, they score on their counterattack because they have a lot of speed. But they're not heavy, they're not tough on the cycle, and they find ways to score on occasion. But they're still a little leaky back there.
Yeah, one of the things they mentioned when I interviewed them for a team story a couple months ago was the fact that they're not an overly physical team. They're not a big team, but what they are is fast.
Yeah, I mean, hey, if there was a skills competition in the league, which I'd like to see, it would be hard to bet against Marco Bozzo. That guy can absolutely fly. Nobody's ever doubted that ability on his. And obviously Todd Winder, the 20-year-old, which I'm sure we'll talk about in this segment. But he can fly. They've got a bunch of guys. Iarulo can really scoot, and obviously on the back end, DiDonato, Thiessen, all these guys can really, really fly. So you go down the roster, there's guys who would be fun in a skills competition.
Well, let's do Winder first then, because Winder is their leading scorer. He's their team captain. He's the go-to guy, and he's just a great kid all around as well. I've interviewed him a few times. Always smiling, always supportive of his teammates, and a guy who doesn't actually have a scholarship offer yet, which shocks me. Because he is the leading scorer on the team, one of the top players in the league. To me, it's really just a matter of time, I think, before he gets something. But just talk about Winder and what he's brought to the team.
Well, he is so shifty. He creates for others. I mean, I think, Quinn Ewell, the 16-year-old, has had a pretty good year, especially for a 16-year-old. The big kid could be in the OHL next year. But he's certainly been at his best when he's on Winder's line, because Winder creates so much. He's so shifty, a little water bug, one of those South Central Coyotes alumni, and obviously, north of Toronto up there, they've been creating a lot of talent lately. Obviously Cameron Wright, another alumni too. But Todd Winder's a guy with a ton of skill. It just could be the circumstances, the situation. There's all sorts of reasons kids don't get scholarships, and obviously we hope for the best for Toddy Winder.
Christian DiDonato, you'd mentioned before as well. He's the anchor on the blue line. He's also one of the leading scorers on the team, putting up a lot of points, one of the leading scorers for D-Man in the OJHL. Talk about Dido and what he's brought.
Well, he's got free reign to be as aggressive as any D-man in this league. There's so many times he's been below the other team's goal line on forechecks, and he's got free reign because he has all sorts of ability, all sorts of hockey IQ. He's got great speed. He's kind of Mr. Newmarket, you could say. He's from Newmarket, York Simcoe Express, minor hockey all the way up, and in minor midget, Belleville Bulls draft pick. But all sorts of skill. Been loyal to that Newmarket organization too, and you got to give him props for that. But he really is the straw that stirs the drink, and when he's in the lineup and healthy, it makes a huge difference for this Newmarket club.
Thomas Milne, head coach, who, as mentioned, was brought in after the season started this year. He has history in Aurora, of course, going back several years, all the way back to, I believe, the RBC team back in 2004. But now in Newmarket, a very well-respected coach. Talk about Thomas Milne.
Yeah, well, he's really instituted a lot of structure. I think this Newmarket team, for whatever reason, as I said, they didn't seem to mesh with the vision of Tom Longland before, and the structure that he's set up is certainly a little more defensive, perhaps a little bit more prudent, given the fact that they have to play those East Division powerhouse teams, pretty often, and when they're tight defensively, they're quite good.
Absolutely. Finally, we're under a minute now, Nugsy. Just they're battling for that 8th and final playoff spot with the Lindsay Muskies. 2 points, 3 points, typically separating these teams. Lindsay seems to be getting close. Can't quite overtake them yet. But just talk about that battle that's going on. And unfortunately, whoever gets that 8th playoff spot is going to have to face the number 1 seed, which is either going to be one of Trenton, Cobourg, or Whitby, right?
Yeah, no, well, it's funny. I mean, I mentioned the prospect to a couple of players that I know on Trenton about facing Newmarket in the first round, and Lindsay too. And they're like, those teams sometimes they give us some trouble. But to be honest, it is such a big thing for organizations to get into the playoffs in order to recruit players for the next year and whatnot. But it should be a great battle down the stretch.
It will be a great series to watch regardless. Nugsy, thank you for being on once again. And we're going to have you on next week as well. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much for having me.
Okay, more OJ Today coming up in just a moment. Welcome back. Well, for much of the season, the Markham Royals went back and forth with Stouffville in the battle for supremacy in the North Division. But over the last month, Mike Galatti's troops have pulled away from the Spirit and, barring a collapse, should nab the 2nd overall seed in the Northeast. And they were looking to further pad their lead last weekend, taking on struggling Aurora. And Markham has extended its lead to 9 points over Stouffville in the North presently, but it's the Tigers that get the ball rolling. Luca Esposito bides his time, pounces on the rebound to make it a 1-0 Aurora score, 9:03 in. But the Royals would respond, and it's a beauty by Riley St. Ange. Lane McKay sets him up. St. Ange roofs it, and they were all knotted up at 1 apiece. Markham had a field day in the second. Aurora gives it away deep in their own end. Lucas Condata says, "Thank you very much," as he slots it home. And Markham up 2-1. And then on the power play, Connor Colbold will tee it up for Lane McKay, who absolutely smashes it past Braden Lachance. Gorgeous shot. Royals up 3-1 at that point, and then Markham moves the puck around brilliantly here. Riley St. Ange will get credit for tipping home the Jake Cuffney point shot, and the Royals were cruising up 4-1. Third period, they would add one more to complete the rout. They steal the puck here, and then it's some pretty sweet passing, a little tic-tac-toe, cobbled with the finish. All Markham on this day, as they were pretty much in control, and they run away with it. 5-1 your final. So St. Ange with the deuce for the Royals as they dominate. An even bigger win came the next day as they dropped host Trenton at the Winter Showcase by a 6-5 score. Markham looking pretty good right now. Okay, the team trying to catch them in the north, Stouffville taking on Whitby. It didn't go well for the Spirit. 12:34 in, Tiger McDonald makes it 1-0 Whitby, and then just look at as he puts on his hard hat, muscles his way in before roofing it past Aaron Taylor. Beautiful effort. 2-0 for Whitby. Second frame, they kept on coming, and it's McDonald with his second of the game. He's got 13 on the campaign now. 3-0 for the Fury. Stouffville does break the goose egg late in the period. Josh Argier shelves it past Austin Kane to narrow the deficit to 2 goals, but Whitby would put this baby to bed in the third. John Hudgen manages to squeeze it past Taylor to give the Fury a bit more breathing room. Up 4-1 now. Austin Kane doing his part at the other end of the ice, making some big stops, and Taylor doing likewise for the Spirit to make sure it didn't get any worse. At the end of the day, though, Stouffville's sticks were silent, and that was the decision maker as Whitby cruises. 4-1 your final. McDonald with a deuce for the Fury, who are in tough in that East Division. In a dogfight with Cobourg in the battle for second place, and currently the Cougars leading them by a single point in the standings. Okay, the Patriots visiting Georgetown last week. Colton Kalizic kicking things off in style for the Pats as he finds a sliver of daylight past Josh Astorino. What a shot. Toronto up 1-0. Second frame, they continue to take it to them. Oliver Benwell doing all the dirty work here and then enjoying the fruits of his labor as he shelves it past Astorino. An upset was brewing. Toronto up 2-0, but hold on. 5 minutes later, the big Blas, Keegan Blasby out front, knocks it home to cut the lead in half, 2-1. And then it's Jonathan Hampton setting up Aaron McDonald as they exploit the 2-on-1. Raiders tie it up, it's 2-2. Third period, they pull away. 1:23 in, Colin Rigney, one of the Raiders' big deadline acquisitions, works some magic out front here, tucks it home, and that is exactly what they traded for. Raiders go up 3-2. And then another of their newcomers at the deadline, big Scott Doherty, gets his second as a Raider to seal the deal and send the home fans home happy. 4-2 your final. Interesting stat worth noting. There have been some close calls, but the Raiders have yet to lose a single game at Gordon Alcott Arena all year. It has been a fortress for them. Okay, the Cougars look to keep rolling against North York, and they did just that. First period, Darius Dimitriadis catches Jeremy Littner looking the wrong way, and it's 1-0 Burlington. Second frame, some slapshot style roughness as two Rangers get bodied into their own bench through the open door. Ouch. Third period, Burlington ices it. Littner gives up the big rebound. Dante Filicetti pokes it home, and that was all she wrote. The Cougars comfortably in the third seed for the Southwest. No hope of catching Georgetown for first, but they are just kind of fine-tuning things for their playoff run and looking like a serious contender. Okay, the top five for this week brought to you by Jostens, official championship ring provider to the OJHL. Number 5, Burlington's Anthony Baxter absolutely smashes the one-timer past Mississauga's Tyler Karuna, who still hasn't seen it. And number 4, Aurora's Eric Holland with the game on his stick in the second overtime versus the Canadians. Money as he gives the Tigers the big win. Number 3, Markham's Lane McKay with the ridiculous wrister against the Tigers, part of a big 5-1 Royals win. Number 2, Oakville's Bryce Misley going through the Patriots like me through a hot fudge sundae. Fudge. Gorgeous goal. And number 1, Georgetown's Jack Jacome with the game winner against North York, bending Joey Mazias into a pretzel. The diminutive Dynamo continues to electrify, and he's got our OJ play of the week. And that is going to wrap it up for this week. But just remember to keep up to date on absolutely everything with the league. You can head to ojhl.ca. On Twitter, you can find it at OJHL Official. And on Facebook at facebook.com/OJHL Official. Thank you for watching, folks, and we will see you next week.